Thanks, Buhle. In the point of view, the Electoral Commission of South Africa commissioned the Human Sciences Research Council to conduct two studies relating to the 2021 local government elections. Firstly, a voter participation survey and an election satisfaction survey to be conducted on November 1st. The main aim of the election satisfaction survey was to determine opinions and perceptions of voters regarding the freeness and fairness of the electoral process, and further assesses the operational efficiency of the Electoral Commission in the managing of the 2021 local government elections. For more on some of these findings, we speak to Human Sciences Research Council Researcher in the Developmental, Capable and Ethical State Research Division, Dr. Mercy Ngungu. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. The IEC declared these elections free and fair, despite the many challenges that were experienced here. Talk us through some of the processes that were conducted to determine the outcome of these two surveys.
And thank you to the viewers. We looked at a representative sample of 3,000 voting stations in the country, and we used a multi-state sampling procedure, which was stratified. And of the 300 voting stations, in each voting station, we interviewed randomly 50 voters who had voted. So we divided the day into 4 time slots so that we could monitor the voting perceptions and the dynamics throughout the day. We managed to get 12,229 participants participating in the survey to completion, and we analyzed these results based on that sample, which of course was representative of the voter register.
Voter turnout, specifically low voter turnout, was a huge concern during these elections, and a number of reasons were cited as to why people didn't feel it important to make their way to voting stations. Some did make their way to voting stations and were turned away. What were some of the findings as you conducted these two surveys when it comes to aspects of voter turnout and perhaps the reasons and the perceptions that people had on November 1st?
In the electoral satisfaction survey, we did not look at the voter turnout, but in the earlier survey, which just ended in October before the elections, we had looked at wanting to know if voters would be willing to vote in the upcoming election. And there was some dissatisfaction there, more with the political leaders and political parties. And those were the reasons as to why voters had indicated in that survey that they will not be willing to participate in an election. We also posed the question of COVID-19, and they indicated that if they would be vaccinated, they would be willing to participate in the election. But for this specific ESS survey, we did not look at the voter turnout. So in terms of the voting experiences on the voting day, 68% of the voters took less than 15 minutes to get to the voting stations. The voting stations were very accessible even to persons with disabilities, and the queuing time was more than 77%. And they indicated that the instructions at the voting stations were very clear, and they had a very good experience in the instructions. And senators, again, were clear inside and outside the voting station. That was the voting experience of these voters. Again, they also indicated that nobody coerced them to vote on the election day or even prior, whether friends or relatives or any political party. So they had a very good voting experience. We also further...
No, you may continue.
Thank you. We also further looked at the operational efficiency of the IEC, and an overwhelmingly big number found that the IEC conducted the elections in a very good manner. The staff was friendly and everything was well catered for. Though we've seen results coming from the media whereby the blind people impartially cited claimed that they were not able to conduct the election or to vote because the gadgets that they needed were not included. Of course, this is very insignificant number, and it's nothing that we shouldn't neglect. This is what we're calling for action, and the numbers were very good. We had 1,000 disabled persons voting, and of those that voted, a big number, 87%, found the election process to be quite easy, and the IEC conducted this election in a very good manner, and the election was very fair at 94% and free at 95% level.
Dr. Ngungu, you mentioned the challenge of voting for the blind, and I know that they had also cited that the secrecy of their vote was something that was also a huge concern for them, because then they weren't able to make that decision without informing someone else who can make that mark for them. What did you find overall when it comes to the perceived secrecy of the vote?
Thank you. We had 96% satisfaction with secrecy of the votes. And of course, these results are based on the sample that voted on the election day.
And what were some concerns that you found as you conducted your research? Because a number of challenges have been brought to the forefront, the IEC itself admitting that 42 days to conduct this election process is a very dangerous mission, and not really advising any other country to take on this daunting task.
Of course, these have come up, and we're doing a series of surveys for the IEC, so these are interesting things that we're going to be putting out in our next series of surveys, just to get the opinions and perceptions of voters of how they would have preferred this to be conducted. But for now, we do not have any statistical results from our previous studies, and these are the things that are coming up that we would be investigating now.
The trust of the Electoral Commission, what have you found to be perhaps an interesting trend over the years as you've been conducting these studies?
Trust to the IEC has stayed steady, though a little decline in overall all the institutions, the parliament, local government, the media, etc., etc. But trust with the IEC still ranks very high over years in comparison with the other institutions. And it stayed steady, though there's been a decline, but it still ranks very high.
Well, with that decline during the 2010s, what were some of the contributing factors that you noted?
Of course, the political landscape has been not very smooth, and such has contributed to the citizens distrusting such of these institutions over time.
And very lastly, before we let you go, the overall integrity of the IEC, what was your finding on that? Of course, we've seen IEC officials throughout the week doing as much as they can to shield the Chapter 9 institution from really being seen in a negative light. What were your findings?
In the ESS, we found the electoral integrity to be very high. The IEC integrity has stayed very high over years. We've conducted the ESS study for over 2 decades now, and we've done our trends, and it stayed very steady over years. And in this study, all these factors that we interviewed combined show that the IEC integrity still stays very high, and it's still steady in comparison with our previous studies with the IEC.
Interesting developments indeed. That was a researcher at the Human Sciences Research Council in the Developmental, Capable and Ethical State Research Division, Dr. Ngungu. Thank you so much for your time.